All right, so welcome to the Bloodlust mod, and first of all, it's a super marathon mod. So tech takes 10 times longer than it does even a marathon, and it's only meant for huge maps, in particular, big and small, lakes with no ocean at all, or Pangea. Those are the only three map types I have in mind. Now, for big and small and Pangea, big and small includes anything that's similar to it, like hemispheres or continents. Navy combat was a problem. So the original, the original issue I had with the Super Marathon mod was infrastructure. Buildings. Infrastructure is very important in Super Marathon. Okay, you need every building that a city can possibly make. Okay, and well, why is that a problem then? Well, in Super Marathon, and the way the game works is it actually is about really huge armies, right? Maintenance costs are very low and things like that. And every era lasts a life age. Okay, the Bronze Age will last longer than a marathon game all the way to future tech in the Super Marathon. But because infrastructure is so important, you really can't afford to lose coastal cities. Because rebuilding all the infrastructure in a coastal city uh, takes too long. So I had a problem, and this is a problem that's true in the game, whether it's modded or not. The original game, K mod, any version of the game, regardless of game speed. And the most common problem that comes up, but it's exasperated in my mod, Super Marathon, the Bloodlust mod, is I'm just going to give you a scenario, but this happens in regardless of the mod or the game you're playing. Okay, so here's a scenario: Genghis Khan has 50 galleons sailing to my capital. If I declare preemptive war on Genghis Khan to kill all his galleons, Genghis Khan has Isabella's religion on the other continent, and I don't. Then I get -1 declared war on our friend from Izzy. Let's say Toku, Alexander, and Shaka for being warmongers too, with the warmonger spec. Now Izzy declares war on me with 50 galleons, and she approaches from the opposite shore. Now Toku, Alexander, and Shaka dogpile me, and I lose the game. So because Genghis Khan was sailing to my capital with 50 galleons, and I preemptively declared war to kill his galleons, I ended up losing the game because of diplomacy. So that to me is a fucking problem. Okay? Now, in my Super Marathon mod, you declared war on me and you declared war on my friends. It actually does expire. Thank God. But it doesn't expire that fast. Okay? Remember, this is the Super Marathon. It's what's in mind. So it takes nearly 300 turns for you declared war on me to expire, and 200 turns on average for declared war on our friends to expire. So the other thing is that the issue when the time and when this happens, when astronomy tech, galleons, and things like that, it's not usually at a time when you can engage in warfare. Okay? Uh, in order to, to beat the AI during this era, you first need to get to rifling grenadiers and cannons. Okay, but then again, you have a problem because you also have to get frigates and you need military science for ships of the line, and it's crazy. So the problem is that you usually get dogpiled right around the time when your army is at its weakest historically in the game. So this I first created a thread here on Civ 4 Fanatics, and it says, how do you reduce Navy speed to 1 in enemy territory? So now the idea is, well, if Genghis Khan, wants to sail to my shore, say this is my shore and this is the coast tile, and then this is the ocean tile. So, my borders at least go, at a minimum two water tiles. The idea would be, well, if Navy ships could only move 1 turn in enemy territory, when he declares war, then his ships will be stuck on this tile, and I'll be able to destroy them all. If he doesn't have a proper navy. Okay? And now he can't land his 50 galleons full of cuirassiers and cannons on my shore, because I killed them all at sea. Problem solved. Except, unfortunately, there is no way to do that. Well, there probably is, but I imagine the coding would be absolutely intense. And I'm glad that I didn't even bother trying to find out how to code this or do this, because it addressed it made me realize that there was a much larger problem with naval warfare in general in this game. So now let's talk about the first thing that I did, and then what then inspired the rest of this Navy mod. The first thing I did was I went to the terrain info, and I went to the coast. Okay, I'm actually going to raise this, and I made it a cost of 20 movement turns. So now that it's a cost of 20 movement turns, okay. So this is the sea. This is the ocean. If you're in a city, let's say this is a city tile right here, okay? When your ship moves out of port, because the coast takes up 20 turns, your ship will get stuck on this tile for that 1 turn. You're going to get stuck right here. However, once you move off the coast tile, you're free to go. So if I have, let's say, 5 moves on a frigate, the frigate will completely stop 1 turn on the coast, but then it can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moves after right onto the ocean. Okay, so how does that change the general dynamics of naval warfare? Well, have you ever seen players in multiplayer or AIs? They just sit here with all their ships inside of a city. And you're like, damn, I wish I had a bunch of transports full of Marines, but I don't. You don't always have a bunch of transports full of berserkers and Marines for that, okay? And or if they do, let's say I do have a bunch of transports full of Marines, and they have a fighter and they spot that, and they just move their ships somewhere else to the next city, and they just hide. And what happens is when your transports finally get close, they dart out, they kill half your navy, and then they run back, and they'll basically have 3 or 4 collateral battleships, do a lot of damage, and send a bunch of strength battleships after they hit you with guided missiles and fighters and shit on top of it, and bombers, and they'll run back to their port and hide. So they do this hit and run bullshit. And it's actually a very frustrating style, and it's even more frustrating in the age of sail because ships are quite expensive to build. Frigates, galleons, and ships of the line are they're quite expensive. So there's nothing more annoying than I have a privateer, You attack my privateer, and then you run back into your city and hide and heal, but my privateer can't because you have another frigate over here and another frigate here that's going to kill me on the next turn if I don't run away. Very annoying. Okay. So this whole hit and run bullshit from within a city is no longer possible. It also means that when you land your ships, when your navy comes, when your transport comes full of all those ships, that is a flashpoint for a gigantic naval battle, because now you're stuck on this tile. And yes, at this point you can defend from your port city if you want to. But at least I have the chance of fighting your fleet. So it forces fleet engagements. But now you might notice, well, that doesn't really fix the problem then of Genghis Khan declaring war, me having to preemptively declare war on Genghis Khan to kill his galleons. Because now Genghis Khan can send his galleon to this tile and then unload his units or do an amphibious assault. So yes, the -1 movement for a coast, the minus 20 movement, basically infinite movement on a coast, is a flashpoint for naval battles, but it doesn't solve the original problem. Now the fix to this is very simple. I'll be right back. I'm choking on something. As I'm saying, the fix to this is pretty simple, okay? But only in the Supermarathon mod. Because I would not do this in a regular game, like normal speed, epic speed, or even marathon speed. What I'm about to tell you wouldn't work. And the solution is to make transport ships only have one movement. So why wouldn't that work in the normal game? Because then it takes too long to sail to an enemy. But by the time your grenadiers and rifles get there, they're probably on mech infantry, okay? Because it takes a transport ship only moves one tile per turn. Now, what does this one tile per turn look like though in a Supermarathon game? Well, now you have a transport ship here that can only move one tile per turn. So first of all, it gives the enemy, the other player, I should say, plenty of time to prepare for what's happening. Okay. And now we're going to have a massive battle on the open seas. So think of this as, one tile per turn. So each arrow is one turn. Now, of course, this led to a whole rebalancing of ships. So how do we rebalance the ships? Okay, we have quite a few tools, some of which have never been used. They're in the XML files, but they're all set to default or none. And the first one is terrain defense, so ocean and coast. This is the biggest one, and terrain attack. Combat bonuses and penalties, of course, movement speed, strength, withdrawal chance, march and sentry promotions, and super slow transports. Okay, so this is what I'm proposing here only works on Supermarathon because it's all about the super slow transport. Now, let's open up the game. And let's see how all this works, okay? We're actually going to start with the modern Navy. Okay. And then we'll go backwards to the Age of Sail, and then we'll go back to the Bronze Age. Because if I tell you the Bronze Age first and then the Age of Sail, you might be like, what? This is stupid. But it'll all make sense if you see it in the modern context. Do I have... So first of all, this is a modding K mod to make the Bloodlust mod. Okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and get in there. Oh, Portugal, of all things, so... Oh. Oh, the other balancing mechanic is limits on number of units. So let's go ahead and talk about that now. What's the timestamp so I can tell people to skip here if they want to. It's 18 minutes in. Okay. All right, so now we have a lot of ways of balancing these units. So let's go look at aircraft carrier. Notice this says national unit limit 2. You can only make 2 aircraft carriers. It now has a cargo space for 36 ships. It can also carry bombers, not just fighters. And it's immune to collateral damage. It's also immune to nukes, even though it doesn't say that. And it has 300 strength, but only has 1 movement. It's a very, very, very slow ship. And it's a very powerful ship. It carries 36 fighters. So 2 of these combined can have up to 72 fighters and bombers. Okay. But only has 1 movement. So where you move this ship, 1, is very important, obviously. 2, if you spot an enemy carrier, you know that that's somewhere that there's going to be a fight. So it sort of conveys information to both sides where each other's carriers are. But now let's go look at the submarine. Okay. The submarine, which I always forget which damn tech that thing is under. Should be on combustion. Well, I'm going to change the mod so that it is. Where the hell is the submarine? I have no idea. What tech unlocks a submarine? The fuck, dude? Oh, radio. Alright. I was like, dude, what? Okay, so radio, I didn't think it was that. But anyway, so let's take a look. So, submarine has 10 movement speed. It can carry 1 missile. It's invisible to most ships. Okay. It can move through impassable terrain, meaning it doesn't... So the submarine is one of the few ships that actually doesn't have this issue with the coast. So the coast won't stop its movement. Okay. They can withdraw from combat. This is really big. 90% chance. Now this is balanced by it being weaker than every other ship in the game. Okay. It also carries a missile. So it has 10 movement speed. It has a very high withdrawal chance. And it carries a missile. Oh, and it does 300 extra attack versus a carrier. So, here's the enemy carrier. Okay. Now, because it has a very high withdrawal chance, that means even when it loses its combat to the carrier, it will still apply damage. Okay. So, one submarine, let's go attack it. Okay. I have a 0.4% chance of winning and 89% chance of retreating. This carrier has 300 strength. Okay. Now it has 261. Now it has 261. Now it has 222. Now it's a 222 again. 180. We're getting there. Okay. 138. 3. That's a dead carrier. Now, let's reload. If I just take a stack of submarines, I guarantee that that stack of submarines, 5 submarines, is taking down that carrier. Maybe at most 6. Three. You only needed 3 that time. Okay. All right. So that's... So even though the carrier has 300 strength, it doesn't mean that it can't die. Okay. Now let's go look at how the submarine fares against other things. So first of all, you'll see that a submarine, whether it's an attack submarine or a regular submarine, it has minus 50% coast and ocean defense. Meaning if you attack a submarine, even if I attack a submarine, let's say here, well, submarines aren't meant to counter submarines, so if I had a destroyer, but you'll see here that I still put quite a bit of damage on that attack submarine. Okay. Attack submarine also has quite a bit of strength in this. I'm surprised that happened. Right, so 5 submarines for an attack sub is a good trade if you know what the hammer costs are. They're actually... So, like, submarines are, like, super cheap in this mod. Okay, they're like a dime a dozen. So they're 225 hammers. A destroyer is 187. And a carrier, though, is 1,500. Okay. But, the balancing mechanic is that you can only have 2 carriers. Okay. A battleship is 750 in this mod. So it's... And a missile cruiser is 1,500. You only allow 4 of these. That's 150 strength. So anyway, let's say we attack submarine versus submarine. Okay, submarines are not. It can win like it just did, but it's not guaranteed. And generally, you don't want to attack a submarine with another submarine. Okay, the destroyer is meant to be the submarine killer. But what that's balanced by is that only submarines can see other submarines. So destroyers can no longer see submarines, so you need a spotter. Okay. Well, actually, the combat odds are pretty high, 90. So actually, a submarine... yes. Okay, I remember I remember testing this. And I realized a submarine... Okay, so why does a submarine need to kill the submarine? Because of the high movement. So let's look at the destroyer. So let's go back to that. So yes, the destroyer will absolutely obliterate a submarine. There's no doubt about that. Okay. However, the movement speed of the destroyer is only 5. So it may not catch the submarine. But if you spot a submarine with your submarine, let's say my submarine was over here and it spotted it. It has a sentry promotion. Now it's like, oh, well, I have a destroyer here. Bang. Okay, that's instant death. Whereas submarine versus submarine, you're still probably going to win, but there is a risk that you won't. But they do have the same movement speed as each other because it's a submarine versus submarine. So you have a much higher chance of catching it. Okay, so now let's look at the submarine versus, let's say, a missile cruiser. Missile cruiser, 150 strength, right? And it has 25% ocean defense. So if you attack it on the high seas, it already has a 25% defense. But here, the submarine only has 24% odds here. But that's pretty good. I have a ship that's really fast. Right here. That costs 225 hammers versus a missile cruiser, which is 1,500 hammers. And I have a 24% chance of winning this fight. Okay, I just did a lot of damage, so I brought it down to 22 health. And the second submarine is guaranteed to kill that missile cruiser. Okay, how about the battleship? Well, one submarine can sink a battleship, and it will. Even though the battleship has 25 ocean defense as well, okay, it's a submarine is going to sink a battleship. So where won't the submarine do well? Okay. Well, remember, this is balanced around super slow transport. So the submarine, it's a very fast ship. It can spot a transport, but it's not going to kill a transport. In fact, it's just going to die. Boom. Okay. How many submarines to attack that? I mean, you can eventually beat it. I think it's about 5 submarines. Okay. On average, it's 50-50 odds with 5 submarines. So a lone transport can't be killed. It takes 5 submarines. Now that destroyer, well, this is pretty bad because... one, the destroyer costs less hammers than a submarine. So only having 3% odds, well, that's okay. But if you hit it with a missile, you'll be all right. Okay. So submarines now make up a very integral component of naval warfare because they have a very high withdrawal chance and they can carry a missile. So it's there to generate a really... they move fast, high withdrawal chance, and can carry a missile. So this makes submarines a, a very devastating weapon. You could think of it sort of like a very fast moving catapult. Okay, it's a very dangerous weapon. At the same time, it would be OP if you could just spam them, but at the same time, we do want a lot of them, just not a ridiculous amount of them. So there's a cap of 32 submarines. Okay, whereas you can have up to 100 destroyers, if I'm not mistaken. So basically unlimited because you'll never have 100 destroyers at once. Okay. But yeah, so the destroyer is your bread and butter unit that you can just shit out basically out of your cities nonstop, especially with the changes I'm making to the game. Basically, destroyers can be made in at most 2 turns on a hammer poor city, and will be made in 1 turn on a on a high hammer city. Submarine should take about 2 turns on a high hammer city. Okay. So I don't know, maybe you could get to 100. Okay. If you really wanted to. Especially in Supermarathon, I could actually see that happening. In Supermarathon, you could definitely get to the maximum cap of 100. All right, so that's the general dynamics. But now notice that I have a second set of ships here on the coast, and that's because some ships do better on the coast and some do worse. Okay. So let's look at our submarine first. Now, Versa carrier, okay, on the coast, it's actually, the carrier is a little stronger on the coast just because of the 10% coast thing. But here, okay, so first of all, submarine has 100% coast attack. However, what you'll see here is that this is 25 versus 126, 25 versus 129. So the attack sub is still better on the coast of this scenario. Let's go to the submarine. 25 versus 17, 25 versus 16. So the submarine defensively will be stronger on a coast tile. But now let's go look at the stealth destroyer, because this is where things are different. So here it's 25 versus 40. This is because a stealth destroyer actually has minus 50 ocean defense. So if you catch a stealth destroyer in the open, on the open seas, you have it's much weaker, it's much easier to kill. But notice it also says plus 100 coast defense. Remember, it's supposed to be like a privateer. So now if I try to attack this destroyer, we just went from 25 versus 40 to 25 versus 126. So if a privateer or a stealth destroyer, they're both the equivalent of each other in their eras. They're very, very fast. The privateer, I believe, has 12 movement. Okay, but there's a limit on them. They're really just a harassment unit, which is why I had to put a limit on them. Otherwise, you just could spam privateers and win every game. So if we look at the privateer, which we'll look at, see how it has 10 movement speed, okay, but minus 25 ocean defense. So again, if it's caught on the high seas, and then it's dead, especially against a frigate. However, if it actually manages to get to your shore and start pillaging, well, now it's a real pain in the ass, okay? Because the privateer is 150 hammers. The frigate is 75. However, it takes about 5 frigates to kill a privateer once it's on a coastal tile. So what this does is it promotes setting up a defensive ring of vision to prevent privateers from just sailing across the ocean. And the frigate is quite slow. It only has 5 movement speed. The privateer has 10. And the privateer also has same thing with the stealth destroyer. It has march and sentry. So even if it does get clipped along the way and survives, it can run away and heal while it's moving. Okay, and it also has that increased sight, which means it's more likely to see an enemy frigate before the frigate sees it and run away from it. Okay. Same thing with the stealth destroyer. However, notice that our stealth destroyer here, it also has 100 coast defense. It has 50 ocean attack and 50 coast attack, though. So if it sees something it wants to kill, it's going to hurt you. Okay. It also can't be killed by destroyers. You have to actually clip it with a battleship, which is harder, easier said than done, because you have a stealth destroyer with 14 movement speed against a battleship with 3. But remember, this is the age of, cruise missiles and fighters. So if you have an aircraft carrier around, it's not really an issue. Now, stealth destroyers also really don't want to attack other stealth destroyers. It's a draw. And for 750 hammers, I don't want to take 50% chance odds of fighting another stealth destroyer. And they can't attack battleships or missile cruisers. But what they can do is pop your destroyers. Your bread and butter destroyers, they're really good at popping your destroyers. Notice there's no defense against submarines, and they can't see submarines. So submarines are really your recon unit in that era that would spot an incoming stealth destroyer. Okay? Missile cruiser. Let's talk about that. Cargo space carries 20 missiles. Okay? And there's actually a change to missiles. It's also immune to nukes. It can see stealth ships, and it has 5 movement. It does collateral damage by default. 100% coast attack. 100% ocean attack, so it definitely favors attacking. Has 25% ocean defense. And minus 75 coast defense. So when this missile cruiser on docks, and it's stuck on that coast tile for 1 square, it is a sitting duck for a lot of ships. So if you're going to undock one of these things, you better have an escort ready on your on dock. Okay? I'll talk about what those escorts may or may not be, or those tile blockers. So let's get a missile cruiser here. Now, missile cruiser versus missile cruiser is a 50-50, though. Well, it's probably a bit in the favor of. So you'll see that, I have 100% ocean attack, right, as a missile cruiser. But I have minus 100% against a missile cruiser, so that actually balances out. Now, remember, this is balanced because, one, I don't have, the missile cruiser has no withdrawal chance. However, it has missiles, so it's going to be attacking first, and it causes collateral by default when it attacks. So, but if it doesn't have any missiles, at least it does collateral damage here. Now, notice though that missile cruiser versus missile cruiser, when it's on the coast tile, this is pretty much a free win, because you have minus 75 coast defense. So if you're a complete sitting duck to this missile cruiser, but over here, no, that was a small chance of winning, but I did win. Okay. Now notice that the stealth destroyer will completely get obliterated, whether it's on the coast with its defensive bonus or it's on the ocean. Okay. A spotted submarine dies to basically every ship in the game. But now notice that this missile cruiser, and this is before it unleashes a missile and without any promotions, it has 50% odds against that carrier. So if it actually closes the distance on this really slow carrier with 1 movement speed, okay, now I died, but it's okay because it probably has no health. Okay, now I would die to one submarine. All right, so that's just how that works. So it's a whole change to how Navy combat works. Okay, now we could talk about the battleship as well. Let's go ahead and do that. And we'll also talk about attack submarines and shit in a moment. Let's go ahead and give me a battleship here. Battleship, 80 strength, okay. Same general bonuses as the missile cruiser. It just can't carry missiles. And has 80 strength instead of 150. But the roll bonus is the same. So minus 75% coast defense. Minus 25 instead of 75. So you still don't want it to get. It's still a sitting duck on the coast, sort of like Pearl Harbor, but has 25% ocean defense. Okay, it'll still do a number on this carrier. So notice it says. Oh, actually, the bonus isn't there. I must have accidentally removed it. Well, pretend it was there. It's supposed to be plus 400 versus a carrier. In fact, let's just go make that change real quick, shall we? That was a error. Don't know how that got removed. Also, destroyer is supposed to have a withdrawal chance. And the frigate. Why isn't my keyboard working? Okay. Let's put those battleships back down. So battleship versus a carrier. Okay, now it's gonna win, just like the missile cruiser. Okay, plus 400. Now I don't know why. So the reason the missile cruiser doesn't have that baseline bonus, because it doesn't need it against the carrier. Because in theory it should have missiles. Okay. And you should have other ships around other than the missile cruiser. So the battleship, if a battleship does close the distance on the carrier, that's a free win. Okay, that's a dead carrier. That's dead airplanes. That's dead everything. Okay, and rebasing mechanics have to be changed. Oh yeah, that's another thing that had to be changed. Rebasing. You can't rebase to a carrier. You can load onto a carrier at port, but you can't rebase. Okay. So that's the other thing. Okay, rebasing cannot rebase to a carrier on open sea. Missiles, other way around, can rebase. Not to a submarine, okay, but they can rebase to a missile cruiser on the open sea. With your airplanes, you're going to have to go back with that one move per turn carrier and go pick them up. Okay, you can't rebase. So there will be a point where you run out of airplanes. Okay. So if you're doing so how does that change modern naval warfare? Well, now your aircraft carrier, let's say this is where the fight is happening, and your continent is far away. The nearest place you can get airplanes from before you have a beachhead is way over here. And let's say this is the zone of the air fight, the radius of the air fight. Well, now the defender eventually can wear down your aircraft. So if you don't have a successful shore invasion and you don't take that city, you better take that city or another city on the coast real fucking fast. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to rebase your airplanes for very long. You will eventually run out. Okay. So again, it's to help the defender. Okay, because right now, Civilization 4 favors the attacker so much that making it favor the defender is not some anathema to the game. It's actually fucking needed. Now, that being said, you might be, and we're going to talk about the March promotion on a lot of ships. You might be saying, well, doesn't this favor the defender a little too much? You have to cross the ocean with a bunch of land troops that can't contribute to the battle, and a slow one-movement transport against an enemy that can spam ships all fucking day for 100 hammers for a destroyer, basically. Well, that's why you have the March promotion, okay? So the March promotion makes it so that, you can't just spam destroyers or submarines only at a stack of death coming for you on the Navy and just keep making new destroyers and popping them. The March promotion makes it, and the March promotion is in every era, even the age of the Bronze Age of triremes and galleys. The March promotion is the balancing factor between the offense and defense in Navy. You cannot wear my ships down that all have very slow movement speeds by spamming a bunch of cheap-ass destroyers, triremes, and frigates. My ships of the line, my battleships, my triremes that you keep dying to and promoting for me will heal as they move. Okay? That's a very important thing. That's why we have the March promotion. Now, it's not on every single ship, by the way. So it's not on the cheap as fuck ships. It's not on the destroyers. Okay? It's not on the submarine. Well, it might be on the destroyer. I'd have to look, but I don't think it is. Where is that? Yeah, it doesn't have any promos. But let's say like the battleship, right? That has March. So it's slow as hell, but it has March. Okay. Same thing with the missile cruiser. Slow as hell, but it has March. Okay. Ship of the line, same thing. Slow as hell, but it has March. Should. Yeah, it starts with March. Okay. Tyrene. It's the only battleship of its era, so it has March. Okay, there's no other ship for me to give it to. Now, what you'll notice, though, in general, is let's talk about these super slow transports. So you'll see here galley has one movement. But you'll see it says 390 coast defense. Okay, but you're only allowed to make 6 of them. I'm going to explain this because they don't always have to be used as transports. They can just be used as tanks, just to soak damage. An empty galley can soak a lot of damage. That's the other balancing mechanic for offense versus defense. So yeah, you can throw frigates at me all day, but I can have these galleons here that don't even have units in them, with a 400% ocean defense bonus, soaking your with March on them, just soaking your frigates. So if you want to stop enemy galleons from coming, at some point or another, you're going to have to make ships of the line. Okay? It's a plus 400 attack versus a galleon. It does collateral. It will fuck up a bunch of empty galleons tanking for the galleon that's loaded with units. Okay. So the idea would be, let's talk about Age of Sail, right? Because Age of Sail is when you can see a lot of this. Most games might not even make it to the modern Navy, right? The game is usually going to be over before that. Not always, but especially in Supermarathon. But let's just talk about the regular game. So what we could have happening here. The galleon is very slow, but you can position them ahead of time before you declare war. This would definitely be not something the AI would do, but in human versus human, let's say in the player versus player, you might see something like this. And what you might have here is sort of you could think, for instance, you don't really have any real defenses on the sea, which is sometimes why Navy combat can be really annoying, even against the AI. If the AI actually beats you to combustion, it's actually very, very frustrating to kill an AI. But now, what I can do, let's get a couple of privateers and a couple of frigates. So if I don't, I really want to push an offensive into you, but you have a bunch of frigates and shit. Okay. Well, I can use these galleons, okay, as sort of like a fortress on the sea. That's basically what their function. If they're not carrying troops, but that's why there's a limit to how many you can make, they can function as a fortress. And the empty ones will make very good stack protectors for your galleon that has the units in it. However, when a ship of the line rolls up, everything changes. So if you think you're going to sail from here to here just with 5 empty galleons and a bunch of frigates with one galleon full of how many units? 20 units? You're wrong. Because now my ship of the line is going to come out and it's going to make a big issue. So let's go show that. Okay. So let's give him a galleon. Privateer frigate. Let's give him a ship of the line. Okay, now let's give me And this is how battleship versus transport will work in the modern era as well. Um, Give me a couple of frigates and give me a couple of ships of the line. And privateer. Give him 2 privateers so you can see the difference here. One's on the coast, the other isn't. Okay, one's on the ocean. So my frigate versus your galleon is going to die. Okay. My frigate versus your ship of the line is going to die, and my frigate versus your... Oh, he's on the coast. Oh, that's weird. But my frigate versus this privateer is going to kill it. Well, not kill it, but has good odds, considering the hammer difference. But now my ship of the line versus ship of the line. Well, ship of the line has 25 ocean defense. But it does do collateral. So yeah, my ship of the line will lose to your ship of the line, but my next ship of the line won't. And the one after that definitely won't. Versus the galleon, so we go from basically 0% chance, 8 versus 25 strength, to 15 versus 5. So this is, one, it's going to do collateral to that galleon. 2, it's going to kill the galleon. But this is balanced by the fact that you can't really spam these ships. Again, you have a limit of 10, and they're very slow. They only have 2 movement speed. And that's balanced out by the fact that the galleon only has 1 movement speed. Okay? So you can't just make a wall of galleons and frigates with a couple of loaded galleons and sail across. Well, you can if your opponent's retarded. But those ships of the line will come out and they will stop that. Okay? So eventually, that's the thing. It's meant to force that epic naval confrontation that you can't ever get in Civ 4. Because the mechanics of the original game, even in K-Mod, don't allow for it. This does. This causes a fucking fight at the sea. And on the open sea. Okay? Now that privateer, here's my ship of the line. It's going to one-shot that privateer on the ocean. But notice now that the privateer is on the coast with 100% coast defense. I still have good odds, but they're not guaranteed, right? In fact, I died. Okay? So when a privateer makes it to your shore and, starts pillaging your tiles and blockading your trade routes, if it makes it there, it's a real pain in the ass. Again, that's balanced out by the fact that you can't spam privateers. Okay? You're limited to only a few of these. 10 total. Okay? Which is quite a bit. And this age, especially with the bonuses AIs have to production, that's a lot. That could actually be a lot of privateers when it first happens. So you're going to need the ship of the line, but you also have the ironclad, which I didn't talk about. But and it's not meant. Now this is not realistic, but it's minus 75% against ship of the line. So it has 40 strength, but minus 75%. So why is that? And that's really important. So does that match actual history? No, it doesn't. Okay, but if you don't allow for that weirdness, then what's going to happen is people are just going to stockpile ironclads in front of their cities, and you can't ever land. So the way the ironclad works, okay, let's give Pericles an ironclad and let's give me an ironclad. It doesn't have any defensive bonuses on coast because it can only be on coast. So it just has 40 strength. And ironclad versus ironclad is going to favor the defender here. Doesn't do any collateral. However, it doesn't do... You'll notice that if I make a ship of the line, it's going to put a lot of hurt onto that ironclad. It's supposed to. Yeah. But remember, it's going to do collateral. So if you had a whole bunch of ironclads here, you're going to have an issue. But now the second ship of the line will kill. Okay? And remember, there could be collateral involved here. But if I make a frigate, so a single ironclad is still a pain in the ass, but a stack of them is not because of collateral. Okay? So, what the, wherever the hell this thing is, you'll notice here is that if I attack a privateer, it's guaranteed to pretty much kill a privateer. And that's really what the ironclad's goal is. So you can't always get straight to steel after chemistry. Yeah, you can get your frigates, but sometimes you got a tech rifling, or you got a tech constitution, or maybe you have 5 AIs trolling you with emancipation. You can't always get the steel, especially if we're on a mostly water map where cannons aren't as important. Okay. And yeah, you definitely want steel for those dry docks eventually, but sometimes you can't always get there, or at least not in time. Meanwhile, you have an AI. Even remember, this is Supermarathon. You might have to deal with privateers for 200 to 300 turns before you get steel, because of how slow the tech is. So once you do have steel, being able to make a handful of ironclads, you can't mass them. You can only have 4. Okay, but it will make your life, especially if it's promoted, will make your life a lot easier against the fucking privateer. So it's just the hard counter to the privateer. So you no longer have to, attack it with either a ship of the line, which is slow as fuck, can't even catch it normally, or, sacking 5 frigates to kill it, or something crazy, right? Your best chance of stopping a privateer before the ironclad is to catch it in transit, but that's hard because it has 12 movement, but it's meant to be that way, right? Privateers are meant to be useful units, okay? Annoying harass units, okay? That can also kill shit if they want to. You have a stack of privateers popping fucking ships of the line on the ocean if you want, okay? But that's basically the idea. So, you have all these bonuses. Withdrawal on practically every ship is very important, so they don't just straight die, even though they have less strength. Movement speed, the limit to a number of how many you can make. Okay. Coast defense, penalties or bonuses. Ocean defense, penalties or bonuses. Roll defense, penalties or bonuses. Movement speed, I'll say that 5 more times. Movement speed, okay, and withdrawal chances, and hammer cost. All together. Oh, and this whole idea of the coast blocking your movement, right? The submarine is the only unit that I know of right now that's able to move through the coast, unlike the other ships. And this is really for defensive purposes. So if you take a nasty loss at sea, the ability to stack a bunch of submarines inside of your cities and keep doing hit and runs with them, it might be the only way to break a blockade on you. Okay, so that's why I left that role there. And also, submarines can only be seen by other submarines now. Airship, it will still say airship can see submarines. That won't be true when I'm done with the mod. I just keep forgetting to. In fact, I could just go change that because I keep forgetting. Airships can't see them either. Also, the airship is now limited to, guess what, 8, right? So, putting limits on naval units, I'll speak about cruise missiles and nukes for a moment too. So you can only have 1 nuke at a time. We'll talk about that here too. You can have one ICBM and 1 tactical nuke. Now, the tactical nuke, 50% chance to be evaded, right? ICBM, well, guess what? I hate nukes, but I think they're necessary in lots of circumstances. So you can only have one. And the SDI, 90% chance of intercepting. It's really, really high. So you just spent a shit ton of hammers on ICBM and it got intercepted. So it's not reliable, but if it hits, it feels great. And now your screen doesn't shake and your computer doesn't crash when there's a modern war, because now the AI can't drop 30 nukes on each other, making the turn take about an hour. Okay? So it really limits the devastation of nukes and actually makes them an asset, just like the aircraft carrier. Oh, attack submarine. First of all, it has more base strength. Now, notice there's a limit of only 5. Has a higher base strength than the submarine, but it does collateral now. Okay, but it can't do that hit and run shit, so it still stops on a coast tile, unlike the actual submarine. Will absolutely devastate a battleship, a missile cruiser, or a carrier, and cannot be attacked by other submarines. It's 400% defense versus a regular submarine. So you only can have 5 of these, though, and they can carry 4 missiles, and at that point, one of them can be a nuke. Okay. Cruise missiles. Like, yeah. Oh, transports can't be affected by nukes anymore either. So the carrier, the missile cruiser, and the transport can't be killed by nukes. Can't even be hurt by a nuke. Guided missile. Okay. It's like a privateer. It can attack without declaring war. And that's it. And you can't see them anymore. So you can't even see if your enemy has them. You don't know where their guided missiles are. So the guided missile is, basically, Shaka has a stack of mobile artillery on my border. Cool, dude. You don't mind if I unleash 100 guided missiles into that stack of 20 mobile artillery waiting on my border, right? It causes mutual respect. Okay. And I'm actually going to get rid of the suicide option as well. I'm thinking, I don't know how to balance that yet, so maybe then you can't intercept them. I don't know. I have to figure that out. So I think the way to deal with it is to give them a 75% interception chance. They don't suicide. Okay. And that way you don't have to keep making them. I'd rather be making fighters and bombers from my low production cities rather than guided missiles. Okay. All right. So that being said, I'm not sure about that change yet, but carriers are also immune to collateral, and guided missiles are now considered aircraft collateral. And as you see, the carrier is immune to air collateral. Okay. Stealth destroyer is not a missile cruiser. Well, somebody's immune to, the transport. Aye. Oh, it is immune to nukes, but I don't see the thing there. But that doesn't show up even when you do it. Also, there's more Navy movement speed. So as the game progresses, ships will start to move faster, and that includes the transport. Okay. So notice that it says that a transport requires refrigeration. But guess what? Refrigeration also gives you 1 movement. So the modern transport actually has 2 movement. Okay. And by the time you reach this era, you know who your friends and enemies are. So if Genghis Khan is coming with transports full of Marines, I'm no longer afraid to preemptively declare war on him. Because at this point in the game, the diplomatic situation is extraordinarily stable. It's not stable in the age of sail at astronomy. If I declare war on Shaka when he has 50 galleons full of riflemen and grenadiers, that could cause me to lose the game due to the diplomatic effects of that. But at this point, it's no longer really an issue. So the transport does get 2 movement. Okay. So the age of sail is where the galleon only has 1. But anyway, so you get +1 movement on refrigeration. Fission is +2. So now you have this now went from 1 to 2 movement. Now it has 4 movement. And superconductors, all right, they're all pretty close to each other. We'll give you an additional 1 movement. And if you want, it acts like liberalism refrigeration. So you can even fucking basically lib that shit and just get it right away if you want. So you'll have a 5 move transport. Okay. So what does that mean for your battleship? Well, now your battleship has 2 movements, right? Now it's 4. Now it's 5. Now it's 6. Don't forget, you can get navigation promotions, right? You can go faster. Your stealth destroyer over here, which is a limit of 10, which is actually quite a bit. Now, 14 movement, then 15, then 16, then 18. And if you sailed around the world, you have 1 more. And if you're fucking Ragnar, you got another. Okay? So the Navy combat is not the modern Navy combat speeds up very quickly relative to the fact that it's Supermarathon. Okay? So fission, nuclear subs, nuclear battle cruisers and shit, +2. Refrigeration, +1. Superconductors could just fuck it, +1. Fusion. Where is that? +1 extra move for land units in my mod. So now your mobile artillery, your mech infantry, all that bullshit now has 3 movement on fusion, right? But has nothing to do with naval warfare. So it actually makes things. Go on those other things in my mod. This has nothing to do with Navy. I don't know why this says +1 extra move for land units. That's obviously a bug. But anyway, you'll notice that actually let's go fix that real quick. I'm gonna keep so I want to get rid of the airship, right? Let's go to that airship. Can no longer see submarines. Okay, now technology. Now I don't know how that happens. It's definitely an error. Yeah, +1 land movement, guys, if you get hunting. But anyway, great people, right? So this is Supermarathon, and great people come out much slower. However, there are great people bonuses, a lot more of them when you research text here. So, for instance, ironworking will give you a great general. Right? It's ironworking is, that's something that people tech a lot. But hey, if it gives you a great general, you might actually want to tech it yourself, right? Monarchy, I have hereditary rules actually going to be moved back to monotheism. Serfdom from K mod will be on monarchy, but so will be a great prophet. Okay, so it's not completely mind-blowing to have it in this area. In case, you're not going that religious route, I'm thinking of no tech trading when I'm playing. A calendar also gives you a great profit. Okay. And then divine right gives you a great profit. And, making things require divine right, like, cuirassars or something, will also make you tech it. But I'm not talking about the technology change. I'm just talking about the Navy changes here. I just want to show you some of the ideas I have. Gunpowder, you get that first, you got a great general. Military tradition, you got a great general, right? Continuing the great profit line, those televangelists on the radio? Yeah, you get radio, you get a great profit. Okay. I have other, you can get a merchant On Compass, you can get a merchant, well, normally just like on economics is normal. You also get a merchant on flight, okay? A great general in medicine, why? Well, if you look it up, you can Google it. Modern medicine changed wars completely, okay? Mass media will now give you an artist, okay? Industrialism will give you an engineer. Hey, you want scientists? Well, hey, you can start right here. Chemistry gives you a scientist. That's damn good, right? Damn good. Physics will give you one too. So will superconductors. Things like that. Because remember, I'm thinking of a super slow marathon game here. Great spies at the. If you're playing super slow marathon and trying to do an espionage economy, well, one, you need to have a religion. Two, you need to meet the other civilizations fast, right? So it only makes sense that if you get optics, you get a great spy. Okay? And you can put that thing on a caravel, and you can go drop it on that advanced neighbor on another continent you just met. Right? So my great people are put in key positions where they're not OP for when the time they spawn, but they're also not garbage at the time that they spawn. It's just a lot of ideas I have here. Anyway, I'm going to close this video. You got the idea.